All right, well, welcome to the Ojai Unified School District Board meeting. If you'd like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. We have some exciting things to talk about tonight, so we'll jump right in. I don't believe there are any emergency additions or modifications.
There are none.
So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. And approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or any comments?
Go ahead.
Kathy, do we have the update to the minutes page? Emailed you. I apologize. I've been in the
That's
process
okay.
of moving today, and so I think that we
That's
made
okay.
the error. But Shelley, if you want to share with
I
us
just
the
wanted to
addition.
make a correction to the, let's see, what is it, 7.5.3, items for future agendas. And my suggestion is really more that we form a committee that will look at kind of a broad array of graduation requirements. Ethnic studies could potentially be part of that, AP classes could potentially be part of that, but it's more of a standing committee that looks at a lot of even the semester classes ideas, kind of a broad, not quite so specific to ethnic studies and AP classes. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
On the
Page 12.
5 point,
Yeah,
So we will.
7.5.3 and then
I
the
didn't
last.
bring what I wrote, but it was along those lines.
Yeah.
Let's see, I
Okay,
have, do you want the actual wording?
well, if you want to send that to Kathy, and I think any version of what you just said
That's basically what
should
it
be
says.
fine. With that
So I'll
change,
make a move to approve the minutes with the change on page 12, 7.5.
great. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Kathy, I'm abstaining.
Okay,
I wasn't here, so I'm abstaining.
right.
It's for re-election 3 years from now.
All right. I think the political thing was last time. Anyway, our student representatives are gone for the summer, so they won't be reporting. We will be missing them. Public comments, we do have one public comment, but it's associated with an item. So I don't have, is this, okay, and this is associated with the item as well? Okay. So are there any public comments that are just general? Do you love Ojai?
Happy summer.
Anything like that? All right. We'll move forward then with our first special presentation. And our coach, Don, if you want to come up. And while you're coming up to introduce your team, I just want to say that we live in a small community in a little valley, but occasionally we have champions in our midst. And this is one of those occasions. So let me turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you for having us. We've been to several different presentations, and we've been very honored and very flattered. But I think that today is probably the most rewarding because being a small community, small area, small district, being as complex as we are, being able to go out and be ambassadors of the school district and of the valley, this is a great way to be recognized. We really appreciate you guys taking your time out and acknowledging the efforts of my players, because these players here, I'm not saying it because they're my players, but I'm going to tell you that there's no better sports team in this valley. There's no better disciplined team of young ladies in this valley. I'm incredibly proud of the accomplishments they have done, not just on the field, but off the field as well. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce all the players to come up. We'll start with our senior captain, Sydney Mo Wimpy.
And if you come up right here. Yeah, please. Yeah. And then when you're done, we'll stand up and take a picture purely for political reasons.
We'll accommodate. Then we have other senior. I'm drawing blanks here. You got me on the spot here. Is Elizabeth Hermosillo. Other senior Taylor Erickson. I'm looking through the crowd, and we go to the juniors. We got Jenna Carlson. We have Zoe Damiano, Morgan Albertson. So my juniors now going into my sophomore. Then we have Emma Dialba. Then we're going to hit the freshmen. We got Aria Alonso, Hannah Ignacio, Lexi Keogh, Willa Williams. Come on, Luke Casey, get up here. Also, real quick, we got a great coaching staff. Our JV head coach, we have Emily Heath, Sarah Heath, and Dan Rodriguez. Our varsity coaching staff is Jake Wimpy, and then my longtime assistant is Joe Polito. But really quick, these are the great group of individuals that I've been blessed to be around with. Not only do they do long season, we start weight training in September and we carry on until we just finished here in May. But the long practices, their studies, we have 90% of our students right here are above 3.0 grade average. All 4 of our seniors are enrolled to continue on their education. But they're out there. They're not just out there to represent the school, but they're out there to represent the community. They participate in the food drive, which we are still the one-time largest contributor in the food drive here in town. They also prepare a meal and feed the homeless, and that's directly right after one of our practices. So they're not just there doing this stuff, but they're learning what it takes to be a member of the society. And we talk a lot about Ranger Pride, and these girls, they exemplify what Ranger Pride really is.
That's fantastic. Thank you. All right, go Rangers.
Yeah.
I
Well,
actually
let's-
have a question. Are any of
Yeah.
the seniors hoping to play after?
We have 2.
Congratulations. That's a big step. That's
Yeah.
great.
Maybe we can get the board to come up with the players.
And then we also have a game ball presented for you.
Oh, fantastic. We'll find a great place in the district offices to put that.
We're gonna kneel and
Terrific.
run.
I gotta go too.
I'll look like I'm playing.
Why don't I sneak behind? Take pictures, all stars.
Dawn.
Oh.
You can send it to me if you want. I'm kind of tall. Looking good, Joe.
Lady should be up here too.
Yeah.
I recognize
Well, thank you, team. You make us look good.
a few more years.
Congratulations, you guys. Thank you. I just graduated.
Good job. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Three
have a Hall of Fame spot to display that?
We're gonna have to, actually, we do have our display case, the history of our district, we'll have to put it right in there. That'll be nice.
Very cool. It's all
That's neat.
fancy.
Half of those girls are on my all-star soccer team.
Oh, really?
Now it's back to the regulars. Yeah. There's like 3 people in the crowd.
All right, it was wonderful to have them here. So I was thinking about it, and once you have a good line, you should really stick with it. We're a small community in a small valley, and sometimes we're in the midst of champions. And one of those is Andy Cantwell. Stand up for a second. We have an award. It's very carefully packed in here, so I hate to take it all apart, but it's
Oh, wow.
beautiful. And
Thank you very much.
That's beautiful.
It's very nice.
Description thing that.
oh yeah, absolutely. Presented to Andrew Cantwell in appreciation for your outstanding leadership in the Ojai Unified School District. And it has the years as assistant superintendent and as superintendent. So 2015, is that 5? 2017. I should put my
2015,
glasses on.
there's an asterisk,
Yeah.
because that was a steroid year.
That's right. And then 2017 to 2019. We hope you'll remember us.
Well, thank you very much.
And we'll pack it up so it'll make the trip.
Thank you.
But I would like to say, you know, there are some people you don't really know that you need them until you have them. And you don't know even what to ask for. And I think we were just really fortunate through a number of events to have Andy here at the time when we were going to need a superintendent. He was able to step up, and he's just done some amazing work, some amazing thought, and I think one of his great talents is being able to perceive and being able to think, to figure out what people want and what they need, maybe even if they don't know. And then to try to communicate that in a way that makes sense and create a situation that's great for everybody. And he's done a lot of that. He's been able to stay calm and cool through the most difficult of times, and I've appreciated that a lot because being president this year has not been particularly easy. We've had a lot of things going on now. One of those things was he's sleeping. So I'll blame him for that. But the other things, he's been, well, and he was even super helpful with that. So he's been fantastic. I could probably talk all night about how great he is, but he has done such a good job of keeping his remarks short that I want to honor him by doing that.
Thank you.
But it's great to we got you
Can
here.
I think the other board members might have something to say.
Yeah,
I
each
just
one.
want to, I'll very briefly say,
remain
Andy,
standing, or should we all
you
just-
got to stand for no. I will just briefly say, and I really mean this from the heart, that there is an expression that has come up a lot lately in political discourse that character is destiny. And I believe that's true, and because of that, I believe you're going to have an amazing future. Because you have outstanding character. You really do.
Thank you.
And I've really enjoyed working with you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, fine. Okay, well, you know, there is a special thing about the Ojai Valley, and I think it's evidenced by the fact that the right person shows up at the right time when it's needed. And I'm going to echo what Thane said, because I don't think it can be said better. You were here when we needed you, And in the grand tradition of theater, you know, you always leave them wanting more. So that's, you know, okay, I guess. But no, I really appreciate your steadfast leadership and your calmness, actually, in the face of a lot of interesting things. So it's been a good run, and I wish you the best in the future.
Thank you very much.
I look back and I think about your first weeks here was the discovery of the business embezzlement. Your first month as a superintendent, or first couple of months, was the tree at Topa Topa, the fires, what we dealt with this year with the students at Matilaha, and I just think, you know, baptism by fire, but I think that's what they were talking about, that the way you led us through that, the way you handled that, the way we could trust in your representing us in the media. You were on NPR, and you know, that's not easy. And I know you have expressed at times concern that, oh, you know, I'm young and I don't have experience at this, but at the same time, what that brought with it was the ability to listen, which was really important time in our valley for you to be able to listen, and just that sense of nothing was going to tip you over the edge. You know, if you could handle the investment, if you can handle the trees, and you can handle the fires, and you can handle all the changes that have been happening, and I think there was a shift in our valley after the fire, and to go with that and to be able to help guide us, I think we were very lucky. So I appreciate that you were here, and we will miss you.
I would concur totally. I felt like in my 2 years on the board, we have pushed you to the edge with the events of this valley. And that calmness has been the steadfast rock that we have all been relying on. And I think for me, what I appreciate the most is your communication skills, that you are able to take these complex ideas in negotiations and in talking with the press and the politics of the day, and talk to people in a way that they really understand what the issues are and what all the complex parts are, without totally going so over your head that nobody really understands. That communication piece has been very much appreciated by me.
Thank you.
We will miss you.
Sean.
I don't know if people realize how, I mean, he has 5 different opinions coming to him, and then he has all the principal staff, and you're just dealing with a lot of, there's a lot of.
Wow.
Well,
Great
thank you very
job.
much. I normally, so Thane mentioned earlier, made reference to, at the end of our agenda, there's a item for superintendent comments, and often it'll be about 9 o'clock, and so there'll be some joke to the effect of, you know, either I've got 20 pages here of comments, but I'm going to wait till next meeting, or I just skip straight to the punchline. I'm going to wait until my next meeting. In fact, looking at the minutes last meeting, I was reminded that I said I'm going to defer any superintendent comments to the last one. So I'm not going to be completely in line with my normal brevity. I timed myself earlier today, and it's about 8 minutes. So I do have a few thoughts I want to share, though. So, you know, thinking about leaving the district and just thinking about my time here lately has me thinking about this line in a book that I enjoy. The author says, "What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you did not?" So as I reflect on my 4 years in the district, boasting of any sort would be horribly misguided. The opportunities that I've been given are just that. They were given to me. First by Hank, and then by you guys, the board. And so I want to focus tonight on just expressing some gratitude. To be clear, there's far more people in the community and in our district for whom I'm thankful, including, you know, the folks in the room tonight. But since I do have a pink bedroom tonight that I have to paint, or I'm not getting my deposit back, I'm going to keep the comments again limited. So I need to begin any conversation about gratitude in my time here in the district with Hank. I'll forever be in debt to him for all he's done for me. not the least of which was hiring me in the district as assistant superintendent, and then 1 year later announcing his early retirement to give me the opportunity to succeed him. Hank was an excellent rater of people. He still is. He's able to identify individuals' competencies and their capacities, and he knows, just as with any great coach, the right level of push to help that person succeed and to grow. And so I'm grateful for the extent to which he pushed and helped me grow. Even in retirement, I would call Hank at least once a month over the past 2 years, asking his guidance, his feedback on an issue, and he always helped me think through the issue. It was very seldom that he would actually give me his own thoughts on the issue. Instead, he just helped me really walk through the critical parts of the problem. So I want to thank Hank for his friendship, his mentorship, for genuinely caring about my family and me, and for the sacrifices that he made for me. Now I want to talk about you guys here briefly. Hank's early retirement and his succession plan would only have occurred because of your action. So thank you for taking a tremendous risk by appointing, as you said, a 30-year-old with no teaching experience or credential and without going through a superintendent search process. It required tremendous fortitude on your part to take that non-traditional path, and it deeply honors and humbles me that you saw something in me that caused you to take that action. So you guys gave me this opportunity the past 2 years, and I'm extremely grateful. So again, thank you very much. I've enjoyed working with each of you. You're highly intelligent and an engaged board, and you genuinely care about the men and women that we employ, as well as the children that we serve. I appreciate the unique perspective that you each bring to your role on the board. We've faced many of these issues together over the past 4 years. You've demanded a lot, and you've led the district toward improvement. Yet not one of you are doing this for selfish reasons or for anything but the right motivations. You devote far more hours than anyone realizes because you believe in the necessity of a rigorous and a whole-bodied education for all children in this valley, regardless of means or their background. So I want to also thank you for how you've conducted yourself over the past 6 months. Since I shared with you my intention to leave the district, you are not only professional, but like Hank, you've sincerely cared for my family as well as me personally, and you've supported us during this transition. So thank you for allowing me to continue to lead the district this year and for including me in the deliberations, ultimately in identifying Tiffany as my successor. The common saying relating to job security for superintendents is that you have to know how to count to 3. You have to keep 3 board members happy at all times, otherwise you might be at risk of losing your job. But I think that for me it was actually about counting to 2. While 3 was an important number, 2 had equal importance because I could not have done my job without Cheryl and Kathy. I am so grateful for all you both have done to support me, to serve our staff, as well as to improve this district. Cheryl, I always say that my job these past 2 years was to keep issues off your desk, to free you up to fill the crucial need for principal support and being the educational leader in our district. You have a vision for how we will improve student experience and student outcomes, and I've fully bought into that vision, as I know many in our district have, and those who haven't soon will. They just need to hear from you more because of your inspiring speeches. Meaningful, successful change does not happen overnight. I know that you've put in hundreds or probably thousands of hours over the past 2 years working on these initiatives, and I'm grateful that Tiffany will support and maintain the growth of these initiatives. Beyond that very important work you've done for the district, you've also become a trusted advisor for me and a bit of a therapist at times. So I thank you for your friendship and your support these past 2 years. And I'm sorry that I actually failed in doing what I've said my job was, because the past 6 months, as soon as I announced my resignation, I know that your workload's increased significantly, and even more so once my son Clyde was born. So I'm sorry that I didn't do what I said I was supposed to be doing, but I thank you. Got one last page. Kathy, I know that the board and our staff appreciate you greatly, but they have no clue just how much you do. You put in countless hours in our office, at home, as well as at home, supporting the district and me. You do whatever needs to be done, and I am extremely grateful for your dedication. When Linda Taylor retired from the board back in 2016, I made a comment then that she and my wife were the two most empathetic people I know. I think I misspoke, or maybe I just have got to know you better since then, but you certainly have to be included in that conversation. It's one of your greatest and most endearing attributes, that you love and just care for people, even if you don't know them. If you just hear their story, I know that it really impacts you. And the way it does helps you to serve as well as lead in helping better serve and provide for families in our district. You're extremely intelligent, and Thane talked a little bit about his perception that I can be intuitive and trying to identify solutions. That was the word that I was thinking with you as well, that you are intuitive and able to predict my needs before I knew that I had them. So thank you. Debating whether or not to say the next two paragraphs because I might get more emotional than I already am, but I'll give it my best shot. Last person I wish to thank is my wife, Heather. Returning to a superintendent's need to count, whether it's 3 or 2, I probably need to, again, change that and say that really the number was 1, because I could not have done this job for a single day without Heather's love and support and her mastery of caring for our children, as well as making our home. At the risk of sounding like a horrible husband, I will remind you guys that we moved to Ojai on Mother's Day of all days, 4 years ago, when Heather was 8 months pregnant with Chloe. And now, 4 years later, we're moving our family only 5 weeks after Heather gave birth to Clyde. But she sacrifices daily for me as well as for our family. And in every way, she's my equal partner and better half. So my final thought, about a year ago, a volunteer from Inspire came and spoke to Cheryl and I. And she, after meeting with us, she said, would it be okay if I email you some questions? I just want to give you some questions to spur you on to just think about things. And so she did, and they were very penetrating questions that she sent, far different than what I was expecting. But they were really, really good. And there was one in particular that really stood out to me, and she asked, imagine that you're 80 years old, sitting in a rocking chair on our front porch, which maybe that's why I'm going to Texas. They actually have rocking chairs in front porches. But she said, you're sitting in a rocking chair on a front porch with a line of people waiting to talk to you. Who are those people, and what would they say about you? As I thought about it for a while, what I decided was that my hope is that what the people would say was that I was a devoted follower of my religious faith, that I loved and cherished my wife and children, and that I served my community with humility. So I hope that you guys have at least seen glimpses of those priorities in my life for the past 4 years. I wish the best to each of you, as well as to our district. When I say that I truly love Ojai and love this community, this district, I mean it. So the community will always remain a special place for my family and me. So again, I really, really am grateful for the opportunity to be here for the past 4 years, so thank you.
Thank you.
Back to business.
Now or later?
Excellent as always. There are cupcakes. And we're among friends here. Feel free to grab a cupcake while we're talking, and we'll just keep chugging through here. But don't let our talking get in the way of your cupcakes. Okay. We are on item 7.1.1, and Angie, do you want to talk first?
Well,
Do you
first,
want to
About
wait
the sign.
until the meeting
Yeah.
is
Okay,
I'll move to.
that's a great idea.
I'll move to approve, to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. The public hearing is open.
Okay, now I'm talking. I'm getting better at this.
I know. Someday you'll teach me.
I probably didn't even have to fill the thing out right. So I'm Angie Janesi of the Ojai Federation of Teachers, the president, and I am just here to talk a little bit about our agreement. We negotiated all year. It was the longest negotiation, it seemed like, for the shortest amount of stuff ever. But I felt like, as always, OFT and the district came together and had a great time collaborating and working with one another, as we always do. And so I wanted to note that, because it seems unusual to me that we come together, we say what we want, they say what they want, or you guys say what you want, and then we all try to figure out what's best both for everybody, and trying always to keep students and their issues in mind when we're negotiating. So I just wanted to say that we are happy about the agreement, and we are pleased to say that it was ratified, and we hope that you approve it for OFT. Also, thank you, Andy. I've already said my thank yous, but publicly I want to say that it's been great working with Andy, and I'm sad that you're leaving, but I'm happy for you and your family. So.
Are there any other public comments on the tentative agreement? If not, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to approve the tentative agreement, or are there any comments?
I just had a question, and I think I already know the answer,
Yes.
but we're talking about the multiple subject teaching credential being acceptable for voluntary requests, but not for involuntary. Is that because voluntary allows case-by-case analysis of the credential and involuntary would not? Otherwise, what would be the difference?
I think that this had to do with the fact that chaparral you can serve at chaparral in a multiple subject status, but most multiple subject teachers don't go into their job thinking that they want to be a chaparral teacher. So when we're involuntarily transferring people, we don't consider chaparral an open option as far as bumping out a person. Does that sound right, Andy?
Yes, that
Yeah.
sounded right. And then what we did want to give people the option, if it was a choice that they wanted to, because we have had several multiple subject teachers then go into teaching in the past, teaching at chaparral. So we wanted to leave that open, but not for people who were like, no, I don't really want
Yeah,
to.
it's a non-standard. Yeah. Cool, thank you. Just, if I could just throw 1 second in, you know, Angie, you said it's unusual to sit down at the negotiating table and collaborate. You are so right. I can't tell you how right it is. I've been doing collective bargaining in the academic environment for over 15 years, and what you have here is precious, and I think we all really need to preserve it, because it's how it's supposed to be. So.
Is it okay if I respond? I'm so glad that you feel that way, because it comes from, I think, both myself and from Andy and Cheryl, in that when we come together, none of us have this idea that we are marching forward with what we want to do. We know what we want, and then we're always, there have actually been times where we'll be in the middle of negotiations, and I'm arguing for the district, and Andy is arguing, right, Cheryl?
Yeah.
For
Seen
our
it.
side. And then we both stop and go, wait a minute, are we arguing for both sides? But it's because we're trying to think of all sides and we don't want to end up with something that absolutely makes no sense or down the road isn't going to work. If you're thinking from every side, then you actually are coming to an agreement that works and works into the future. So I'm happy that it's working out.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Any other questions, comments, or a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the agreement.
Is there a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. So thank you very much. All right, the next item is 7.3.1, social and emotional learning curriculum. We have a lot of curriculum items, but I want to take this one separately, so.
Yes, perfect. So we have a team of people here to talk about it, but I'd just like to give a little intro. Toolbox is a social and emotional learning curriculum that dropped in the laps of the Miners Oak staff because they have a grandparent of a child there that is one of the founders or one of the started. Yeah. So they had looked at it early on in the year and were sold that it was a great curriculum long before we were talking about adopting a social and emotional learning curriculum as a whole district. And so they had a training in March and have been implementing it since March. And since then, the topic of social and emotional learning curriculum has become a very big topic in our district. And we've taken it now to the entire elementary team to decide how they want to move forward with an adoption of social and emotional learning curriculum. And basically, because of all of the most amazing stories and experiences that the Miners Oak staff has had with it, they've completely sold the rest of our staff on adopting it instead of doing more of a complete pilot where we might look at like 5 different programs and try a couple. This is overwhelmingly supported by everyone. We took a vote in elementary and 85% of the teachers want to move forward with the adoption of Toolbox based on what we've heard from this team. So thought it would be best for you to hear from the team how it's going. So I asked them to come and just talk for 5 minutes about what it looks like on their campus. So we have Principal Teresa Dutter, teachers Richard Bird, Amy Mendoza, and Danon Plott here to share with you guys. So feel free to step up to the microphone so everybody can hear. All of you.
Oh, look, they're wearing their tools.
Yes.
So I'm going to have the teachers share some of the experiences they've had. But in a nutshell, what you're receiving right now is a description of the different tools that are right here on our lanyard. All staff members have been trained in this program, and all staff members wear. I'm sorry. And all staff members, classified and certificated, wear this lanyard that has all the 12 tools that are described in the handout I've given you. In a nutshell, these tools are within everyone, and it helps kids and people in general learn how to cope with the challenges in this world, build resiliency and empathy. And so that's it in a nutshell, and the teachers have some great stories to share with you. Sure.
Hi, I'm Danon Plott, and first of all, I want to say, just listening to like how we were talking about Andy and Kathy and the softball team, there were so many tools there.
I thought the same thing. I have that.
The listening tool. And it's just like, I think we are sharing this with our students so that they can have them forever and ever. And I love that these are the lanyards that everybody at our school, all the teachers and staff wear. And so you will walk around campus and the kids put their hands on them. I will be out at recess duty and there will be a conflict that comes to me between some students. And right away I'm like, what tool can you use? And the power, I don't even have to get involved. Right away they will be like, well, I could do the personal space tool. And the other cool thing about it is there is no wrong answer. You have all the tools in front of you. You don't tell someone, that's a garbage can tool. Like, that's a little thing, throw it away. Because for them, it could be a big deal. And so what's great is if the whole district is being trained in this, that it'll be from school to school. Because right now, it's just awesome that it's not just my classroom. My kids, Amy's my big buddy class. Even their big buddies, when they work together and somebody has a conflict, the big buddy could say, oh, what tool could you use right now? So it transfers the power over to them. And I teach second grade, and so we talk about how our body is like the toolbox. You don't have to have this lanyard. And the tools are within you forever, and you can take them home. My students made this little toolbox because we were trained in March. We aren't experts at all the tools yet, but they know all the tools. They just, breathing tool is one of our favorite. Like I see kids walking around the playground and they're just like, and they're just like readjusting. Like, I got this. So Bella in my class said I could take this. And so these are all 12 tools. So they have them for the summer. And Teresa Lessing, who's third grade, she couldn't be here, but I just wanted to show you something that she did with her students. Right after the training, she introduced the 12 tools to the kids. They broke up into small groups, and they kind of talked about different tools, and they each made a page, and they also talked about how they could use that tool and presented it to the class. Because at this point, since it's so new to us, I feel like we just need to really talk about them all the time so that we become more expert on all of them, which could take a long time, but that's okay. So I'm really thankful that we're doing it, because it's made parts of my job so much easier, because they just love this silly lanyard and talking about the tools. So anyways, that's my little takeaway.
Well, my favorite part of the toolbox is that we all have the tools within us. I mean, I know I'm repeating what they have said, but it's not like we're not telling the children what to say, or you need to come over here, what do you say? And especially apology. I have always had my kids apologize to each other, and this is the first year I've realized that that is not a useful thing to do. Because the kids, we all know the kids say, sorry. And you're like, oh, that really went over well. So it's really not a tool that we use anymore. But I think I shared this, we had just had the training, and a student in Richard's class and a student in my class came back from recess crying, and a student in Richard's class was saying really mean things to her. And so we sat down, having gone through the training, and we basically just gave each of them, and they had not heard most of the tools. They had really just heard the breathing tool. I won't take side turns here. So Richard gave one of the kids this lanyard and said, look through this and see what you could use. Both 5th graders. And it was interesting. We didn't realize they would be so serious. They were reading them and turning them over. And the young lady in my class said, she picked use your words tools. And we said, why was that a good idea? Why would that have worked in this situation? And she said, well, I should have told him that I didn't like what he was saying. And we said, can you expand on that? And she said, well, it really hurt my feelings when I walked up to the group and he told me to leave. It really made me feel like I wasn't a part of the group, and it made me feel isolated. And she came up with all these things literally by just asking questions. It wasn't like we were telling her. And we said, and what could you do? What did you come up with? And the little boy said, I came up with the garbage can tool. And we said, why? And he said, well, I told her that because she really annoys me, but it's not that big of a deal if somebody's annoying, so I should just throw it away if she's just annoying and just deal with it and let her come over. And it just seemed so quick and so easy, and it wasn't us lecturing them and telling them what they're feeling and how should you feel and what should you say. They came up with it, and it was kind of like, I guess we're done here, Richard. Like, okay, that was it. But it felt so nice. It's so user-friendly. I don't know if anyone has said that yet, but it does not take any genius to figure these out and to use them. And I, as an adult, cannot tell you how many times I have personally used the breathing tool, or I'm trying really hard with the listening tool. It's the sweetest thing, because I tend to want to multitask. And when people are talking, I like to have other things to do. But it really tells the kid that you listen with your ears, but you also listen with your eyes, and if you can square your shoulders to another human being when they're telling you something, you're actually listening with your heart. And that's how you build empathy. And it's just so sweet. It's very simple, but it just feels so real. Like, it doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel like we're giving them all this hocus pocus. It just feels nice and the kids go, oh, okay, so I'm working on that one. Facing people, so. But adults, I'm telling you. Oh, I was going to make it, we're talking too much. This little boy in my class who is, like, every year there's one that's just has lots of energy. So this little guy I had in my classes last year, he was so darn cute. And as soon as that breathing tool was taught to him, I would look at him, and at least once a day I'd look over, and he was not doing it for me. He wasn't doing it for anyone else to see. And I taught my class to put your hands on your chest and on your belly and to feel the breaths. And I'd look at him, and he'd be going. And it was just like, oh, my heart. I was like, he's trying. He's got it. And it was really subtle, but I'd look over there. So anyway, we all need to breathe.
Hi, Richard Bird. I'm a relative new teacher here. I've been here about 3 years now. I came from the Bay Area. I did my student teaching in Berkeley. And they've had Toolbox in Berkeley now for probably well over 7 or 8 years. It started in Richmond, California. So when I arrived at Miners Oaks and Teresa asked me, hey, have you heard of this social emotional program called Toolbox? I was like, as a matter of fact, I have. And it was really kismet. I mean, everything kind of happens for a reason. And when she said she was going to bring it in, I was like, absolutely. And when we did the training, there was one thing that what's his name? Chuck, who's the grandfather who works for Toolbox, said, which was really simple. He said, we have to go slow to go fast. And in our daily rush to get in the ELA lessons and the math lessons and the social studies and the science and the PE and then prep and all this stuff, like just taking a little bit of time with these young people to sit and try to develop a greater sense of empathy skills and listening skills and courage, courage for these kids to say what's in their hearts and just, try to let go of what's weighing them down sometimes really leads to an environment of much better learning. And I truly believe that. And I've seen it work in the schools. And, the other thing is this just really simply codifies a language for all of us to use so that we're not sending mixed messages to the students about what they need to, succeed in this world. Because I can't imagine a child without emotional intelligence succeeding. We really need to be able to develop these kids' hearts in order to develop their minds. So that and the books that come with this program are fantastic. Really, the reading, the stories, the literature. Each lesson has at least 2 books tied to it. Some for the upper grades that are different than for the lower grades, but they're all really quite fantastic books. None of my kids, laughed at stuff that might be corny or otherwise, and that was really encouraging and uplifting to know that, they see value in that. So.
So just to wrap up, the beauty of this program is it's very simple, but it's very profound, and the simplicity allows kids to embrace it quickly, and it's very effective. One thing, Cheryl and a large group of Ojai Unified School District staff attended a 3-day training at VCOE this past 3 days for restorative justice, and this ties right in with that whole program, that effort. Toolbox gives us the language and the small tools that will help those bigger conversations in the restorative justice model to really take hold. So I'm really encouraged for our whole district that we're moving forward in this way, and I look forward to sharing with you as we go along how it's playing out. It's great. I'm really glad you guys are looking at that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seem like great tools.
Yeah, I was talking with Carol Paquette. She mentioned that she was looking into it so that those incoming 6th graders who've had this language can bring it into Matilaha too, and that she can encourage and reinforce those tools as the kids move up into Matilaha. So, it's not just elementary, we're moving the whole district here, which is great.
And we can use these tools too.
Yes.
Well, I think that was when I was at Miners Oaks, I think it was for the spring fling, I had a couple of teachers talk about how they're using it, like for themselves. And a couple who mentioned, I think to Nani, and Amy, you just told a story about seeing a child. It's actually tuning in the teachers to things that they might not notice. I was in the classroom and I think you said, did you just go to your safe space? And the kid was like, yep. Because I don't know what you do, you have them close their eyes or something, but it's sort of bringing everyone's awareness to what other people, that saying of you don't know what other people are going through. It kind of opens your eyes to, I think they're going through something today because I just saw them do their breathing or their safe space. So I'm going to check in with them later. What did you go through or what? Or maybe not, but still it's just.
No, I agree with you. Adults to child, that observation, as well as child to child. They're recognizing like, oh my goodness, how can I help you? Or I saw you do that. It's something upsetting to you. So it's really creating a foundation for resiliency across the board. And I couldn't be happier. Just so relieved that we're able to help foster these tools that will make stronger kids and help improve our academic success because they'll be so successful emotionally. So it's just the whole picture.
That's great. I also have to note that I went to Richard Byrd Junior High School.
Oh, yeah?
So, so I don't see how I can oppose this.
Yeah, actually, I think this is really good. You know, we talk about teaching kids to think rather than give them memorization, and on a personal mastery, self-conduct kind of way. This is giving them tools versus rules, right?
Right.
And I mean, I was raised by the nuns. We had rules and paddles, both of which I was really familiar with. This is a totally different approach, and this mirrors, I think, where we're going with Common Core and all the rest. And I appreciate your experimenting with this and bringing it forward. I think this is really cool.
Great. Do we have a motion to approve the curriculum?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Great. And we have some textbook recommendations.
No, I'm sorry if I could break protocol just for a moment.
Feel free.
I should have been a little bit more assertive when we had the moment to say thanks to Andy. If I could just have 1 minute of your time.
It's all yours.
To say thank you to someone who's been real helpful for me, that we kind of broke our chops, in the leadership position, and it wasn't an easy 2 years, fires and floods and protest and prejudice and all the other issues that we've dealt with. But I want to thank you, because I echo what the board is saying, is that you were just calm, controlled, grace under pressure, even when I was kind of losing my mind at times. And I could always count on you to be that calm presence. You provided some great wisdom, even though you were so much younger than I am. You brought a perspective that really kind of made my job easier. And I want to thank you. I want to thank your family for sharing you with us. I'm going to miss you, and I'm going to miss your son Christian. I'm not sure how that bond developed, but I wanted to make sure. I know you're leaving town tomorrow, and I've got to go back to work, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew how much I appreciated you, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Why not?
And
thanks, Dave, for sticking around for that and jumping in there.
Okay. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
Anytime, anytime.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, textbook recommendations. We actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to consider. I think we could probably take them as a group. Is there something we should know?
The only thing I would like to share is just the very thorough process that we took with all of these. In each case, we had a team of teachers. They went down to an entire day at VCOE where there's a publishers fair, and that is a full day of seeing dozens of publishers present what the programs are. From there, we do another entire day at VCOE in their library where all the programs are housed. And we spend the entire day there, first by starting the meeting with what do we need to think about in our district, what goes on with our students, what goes on with our stakeholders, what do we want to keep at the forefront of our minds as we peruse all these materials. And then from that sort of team conversation, we go into looking at every single program that's there. And then that's a long, exhausting day, if you can imagine, like 6 hours doing that after 6 hours the week or two before at the Publishers Fair. And then from there, I tell the teams that they have to pick at least 2 to pilot. So they bring 2 programs back to the site where we then order materials from the publisher, and they do at least a unit, if not 2, with their current students so that they can really feel the program in action, because oftentimes what you see perusing it doesn't really transpire when you're actually using it with students. So that's the thorough process that brings these books to you today. And one little comment, we're not bringing you social studies for middle school yet because they piloted 2 programs and they're not completely sold on them. So they now want to pilot a 3rd in the fall, and hopefully after that one they'll feel more confident that they've found the right program that we're going to be committed to for the next 8 years. So again, the commitment is there from the teachers, the thorough process is there, and we're bringing you materials that we've carefully selected. So.
Thank you very much. I know it's important to pick these. When I first joined the board, I think we had textbooks from the 1800s or something. So it's important when you pick them that you can live with them for a while.
You're stuck with them.
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate, because, it's hard to sort of say, oh, you can look at the front and what things they're covering. Well, I know we're supposed to be covering that. But you might pick a story. How do we look at it and know that it has value, especially since we do have groups, the equity and education group coming forward, and what stories are they telling about slavery, about the Indians, about, the history of our country, and about the wars we fought, and the choices that we have made. And so I appreciate that you would have a meeting where you would talk about that. What are we looking for? And I don't know how else, sort of like, well, it's pretty, it's got pretty pictures, how else am I supposed to know? Oh, I know, I did have a question. So I noticed they have a student name in them. Were they used all year or just piloted?
Those were used a good portion of the year, actually. Okay. And they were checked out to students, so that's why you're seeing the names in them.
So that's important too, I think, that they were used.
They were used. They were in the hands of students for a good period of time. Yeah.
Great.
And I apologize for not asking earlier. Why did I think I only noticed one had an actual cost associated with it. The other ones didn't show the cost.
We're just still waiting for quotes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so they all cost money.
They all
Figured.
I think it's probably fair to say
they're all in the same general. We don't make decisions, I assume, on cost, and the costs are generally within the same framework.
Yeah, from program to program, the cost is usually around the same.
far higher than a normal person would think it ought to be.
They're expensive.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's what they cost.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, or is there a motion to approve the 6 textbooks?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous on 7.3.2 through 7.3.7. Item 7.4.1, Marilyn, welcome. LCAP.
We'll go one at a time.
We've heard a lot, and there's more to hear, but we're actually voting on something.
Yes, there is one change that I made, and I want to note that. It was as a result, I think, Shelley's question about the chicks, the metrics that we used. So if you look on page 14, you have it in hard copy. Well, in the annual update, we use the school climate index, which is one of the indices for the chicks, and we only looked at the subdomains, which are overall supports and engagement and overall low violence and substance abuse. But in the new goals and the new metrics for 1920, what we're going to do is break those subdomains down even further. So for example, supports and engagement then has 4 subdomains under that. So we'll look at those as well, and I think it'll give us more of a finite picture. So that's really the only change from the public hearing, and that came as a result of Shelley's question. It didn't make sense to have the indices in the annual update and have a whole different metric in a percent. So now it'll be measuring oranges to oranges.
Great. Why don't we take these one at a time? So.
Okay.
I actually have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
On page 3 and 4 of
Do you have the same?
Oh, I'm sorry, never mind, that's.
So 7.4.1, the local control accountability plan. Any other questions on that section? Or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that's unanimous. Moving to 7.4.2, LCFF.
This is something new that the state has implemented to make it more user-friendly.
More.
We used to have the budget embedded right in the LCAP, and it was just one line that said something like, how much did you budget for the unduplicated services, and then how much did you spend, that kind of thing. So just, and it was completely embedded in the LCAP. Now they want, as you can see from the the LCFF budget overview for parents. So now we have a document, I think it's 3 pages, yeah, 3 pages, that the state is now requiring as part of the LCAP.
Great. Are there any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I did. So on page 3 of 4, in the middle where it says it talks about the general fund.
So Marilyn, for you, it might be page 2 of 3, because we have 2 separate numberings on the document.
Yeah.
I understood the paragraph, but I felt like the way it was worded made it sound like the general fund covers maintenance. The general fund covers employee salaries and, right, especially, it doesn't, I just feel like, I don't know, am I right? I mean, general fund is not just maintenance.
Absolutely.
But the way.
Maintenance of service, maintenance of program.
But in addition, I don't know, I just felt like that paragraph is clunky to me. Because I.
Covers among other things.
Yeah.
Do you want to see?
I just want to see, because as a
General fund
parent, if I'm
includes-
just trying to, yeah, the general fund covers blank, 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 I mean, there's a lot of.
And maintenance.
Yeah, it just felt like, because at first I was like, wait, what? And I had to do that a couple times, so
Uh-huh.
if we're trying to make it easy for families to
Right,
read, then.
right. I think the intent of that paragraph is to let parents and the community know that many things are not included in the LCAP as part of our expenditures. Salaries, special education costs, maintenance, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I can rework it.
Given that it is a paragraph about maintenance, not necessarily about general fund, would it be okay if we just did something as basic as the general fund covers, among other things, maintenance costs?
Covers.
Yes,
But,
yes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know it seems silly, but for.
yeah,
No,
it does.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, Jane.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And then, on the second page, the
Uh-huh.
next page, can you talk about what the difference between the estimated and the actual, like why it was such a big difference? So we budgeted 1.3 million and actual expenditures of 2.2.
Where are you, Jane?
Page 4.
It's, on mine, it's 4 of 4.
On mine, it's
I'm
3
sorry,
of 3.
LCFF
Last page of
budget
the
overview.
LCFF.
Updated on increased or improved services for high-need students.
Okay.
Oh, it's 4 of 4 on the top and 3 of 3 on the
Right,
bottom. Got it.
Yeah. Patty has been helping me with the fiscal elements.
So there is a big difference because at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't properly identified or we didn't budget the correct amount. We're not spending more, it's just now identified more clearly in the LCAP. So whereas where we started at the beginning of the year, this was the first year where we actually sat down and
Oh,
expenditures.
those columns where you say this is what we
Yes,
spent?
this is where we
Yes,
spend, this is where
yes.
we spent. initially, we didn't have a real clear understanding as to what services we can really include in the LCAP. And as the year progressed, we started identifying more stuff that really should be in the LCAP. So it looks like we're spending more, but it's not that we're spending more, it's just more services are identified.
They were budgeted but not allocated for this purpose.
They weren't pinpointed to an LCAP goal in the LCAP she had presented before, so.
And I have to compliment the business office, because Patty and her people who work on this, they came up with a system. So we might have LCAP goal 1.3 is professional development. So they came up with a system to identify on that string of numbers when you fill out a purchase requisition on the management code. It'll be G, so 1.3 professional development, G13. So now Patty and her people have a system, but we didn't put that in place until you developed it.
It was a work in progress throughout the whole year, because.
But now we have it. Better.
The county was very adamant that we needed a better system of identifying services, and this has worked really well. And it made Marilyn's job in doing the LCAP and my part as well a lot easier, so, but yeah.
Yeah, and also, also about the business office, what we did is we printed, and so they printed all the actions and services. There's about 15 in the LCAP, and they're double-sided, and they all principals put it in a sleeve. So now when they write a purchase requisition, they have to identify what it is, because they know they can just look on that sleeve, it's double-sided, of all the actions. So we're now, the principals are also part of it too.
Right.
So you're essentially capturing it in a fuller aspect.
And next year, they should
They should be
match
a lot closer.
A lot more in line.
Thank you.
Great. More questions, comments? Motions to approve?
With the change.
With the change, right.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Look, LCAP, ESSA,
Federal addendum.
right.
Is that what you want next?
That's what we want.
Okay, the federal government, CDE applied to the federal government asking if our LCAP could suffice for, every district in California needs a plan. So the CDE applied to the federal government and asked if our LCAP could suffice as our plan. The answer was no, and so we now have to have an addendum that hits those things that the federal government wants that are not in the LCAP. So you have the federal addendum, and that's exactly what it is.
I just wanted to, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think
That's
it's
all right.
great.
Tonight.
Good job.
Page 7 of 24, in the square, currently Ojai Unified supports and reduces. I just wanted to tie in our social and emotional learning that we just voted on the toolbox. And I'm really excited about this section. The district will initiate both social and emotional learning curriculum and anti-bias program in targeted grade levels beginning in kindergarten. And I'm just so proud of the work you've done on that and the teachers and that you've done on that. So, thank you.
Great.
We're
Other
proud of it too,
comments,
pointing that out.
questions? Motions to approve 7.4.3.
I'll move to approve the federal agenda. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. So one more, Marilyn, the categorical aid programs.
And actually, we don't call it categorical anymore, so next year we'll change the title. The CONAP is really the vehicle that we use to apply for federal funds. And you can see on page, they still call it categorical, but it's not really categorical aid. We're applying for Title I, Title II, Title III, and we've never applied for Title IV, Title IV Part A before. but Cheryl and I found out it was at VCOE, and a lot of districts were applying for Title IV. And Title IV used to be safety, but it's changed. Title IV Part A now is student support, and you can combine your Title IV funding with your Title I funding. It's the same, they use the same mechanism, free and reduced lunch, low income, and so we can combine. So there's no reason not to apply for it, and so we are. I mean, there is a reason, you have to write a plan and all that, but it's good for students.
Fantastic. Thank you for writing a plan. That's, so many of these things, we get funds, but they do require a lot of work.
There's certain compliance,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's much appreciated. Any questions, comments on?
Yeah, thank you for applying.
And when do you hear about these applications? When do we find out if that funding comes?
Oh, well, the CONAP is due June 30th, after approval by the board, and I don't know, Patty, do you know when we even?
They start updating stuff like in September. I mean, it's
Yeah,
September, October.
yeah, they'll send a spreadsheet of all 1,000 districts in California, and you can see how much you have.
But the information is a matter of the amount, not a matter of whether or not we were granted the
Oh,
funding.
correct,
So
yeah,
we
just
know the
depending on your
funding's
student
coming,
count.
it's a matter of what the amount's gonna be.
The allocation will be based on the student count.
Right. And they don't use the dashboard to show.
No, it has nothing to do with that. The
Right.
dashboard is a
I
state
know, yeah.
mechanism.
I'm just glad that they're not using that for this. All right,
I'll move to approve 7.4.4.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you so much, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn.
All right, on to the budget. Patty, I'm sure you have some words of wisdom for us.
Not much. We didn't have, from the public hearing on the 6th, there were no changes to the budget. So,
So the couple pieces that we want to make sure that you heard tonight are just revelations that have come through the budget approval at the state level. So two pieces of good news, then Patty supplement if you, as you feel need. First is that we're very happy that the state has taken some efforts, although not as much as we'd like, but nonetheless some, toward increased special ed funding. And for us, one of the big parts is at the preschool level. We are looking at a real refresh on our special ed preschool program here at A Place to Grow, and so that funding, which will be in alignment with the regular ADA funding that we receive for TK and kindergarten age kids, which previously we were not receiving. We were receiving nearly nothing, but we're required to provide services to them, is going to be very significant. The other piece, and it just came out today, is that they are buying down the PERS contribution rate just the same way they did for STIRS. And so the contribution for employers, for districts this coming year is being reduced. Now remember, the increase is being reduced by 1%, not to say that the actual amount we're paying, it still is a small increase. But the amount we were anticipating, and that's in your budget right now, assumes a rate that's 1% higher on a overall personnel cost than what it will actually be. So you will see a few changes, one increase in revenue at first interim and one reduction in personnel cost. So a little bit improvement to the budget on both those pieces that have come out since the state approved the budget.
Good news is better than bad
I was
news.
just gonna say, better that way than the other way.
yes.
Right.
So, other than that, there was
And that
actually
was-
no changes to the document. I'm sorry.
That was just today that came down.
That
The PERS, they just, because they approve the, they have to approve the budget by the 15th. But then they still have, once they've reached an agreement, they still have a few days that trail when it comes to additional trailer bills to clarify certain aspects. And so today was when they provide guidance on the PERS buy down, 144 million going toward the what otherwise would have been district liability.
Thank you, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, not at all.
Terrific.
Other than that, there were no changes from what I presented June 6th, so if there's any questions.
And
I'd
I'll
ask
say
for-
that Patty is currently Kirk Gibsoning it tonight. She's been dealing with a pretty nasty eye injury for the past week and a half, 2 weeks, and so we're really grateful that you're here today. And
I was grateful. I saw my optometrist this morning. I said, I'm ready to go back. Yeah, I couldn't see out of my left eye for the majority of last week, and yeah, so.
That's scary. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
and thanks for all the
You're welcome.
good work.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it tonight and kind of wrap up the budget for next year, and also, I know you're gonna be here tomorrow, but
Got the
just like
barbecue.
David said, yes, yes, yes. I
Thanks,
couldn't miss
Patty.
that.
In the spirit of Kirk Gibson, when you leave, go like this.
Yeah.
Dodger,
So-
late 80s.
Barely made it
hit
around
him.
the bases, but he did, yeah.
I'll move to approve the budget for 1920.
Second, so go ahead.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Great work.
Thanks.
Patty.
Measure J. Tell us about it.
Well, in keeping with the theme of the evening, though, I would like to say thank you to Andy as well for, taking a chance on Alan and I. Your leadership over the last, 6, 7 months has been great. Not only the leadership of just go, do it quick, make it happen, but the support as well to Alan and I through some of our more trying times the last couple of weeks as well with some particular vendors. So thank you, and good luck in Texas.
Sam? So before you get started on your update, I have to reference Richard made a comment earlier about for the toolbox, you go slow to go fast. If you remember, that was a theme that some of the former leaders of the bond had, and we really, really adhered to that guidance. I mean, we lived that message for many years of going slow. Didn't get to the going fast until now, but we are so excited. You guys are going to hear a great update from Adam and Alan, and they just, as I've told you, the last meeting, have done an incredible job leading the bond. And again, a lot of legwork went into it over the past few years, but we are, fully ramped up and doing some exciting things.
We are in full light speed mode at this point. You guys have the update, obviously, that we turned in, but there are a few new updates, I would say. The Topa Topa demo actually started today. We were able to save the LED lighting that was installed last year. A couple of fairly new HVAC units up there will be repurposed to other classrooms as well. The Matilaha roofing actually started today as well. San Antonio is starting Monday. We have the track is obviously in your packet to approve later. The track is slated to hopefully be completed by July 20th, and that includes actually an expansion of the track surface to assist the track team as well as just a better organization for the meets.
When would that begin?
Right away.
They were there today.
They were just doing some site exploration today, we'll say. Because it
I mean,
is
they
on the-
understand it's not approved.
Exactly. We were just testing the soils today. Yes. The Miramonte fencing as well. We're kind of rolling that into what we're calling the playground improvements. It will in turn. There's a 3-foot, rinky-dink fence that's between the mobile home park and the playground. So we'll do a 6-foot tall chain link fence to match the rest of the playground there, and fully secure that field area. We actually did just get news right before we came in here that Ventura County Health has approved our plan for the Matilaha Dining Hall. So that's got formal approval, as well as they are going to DSA on Monday for structural, Tuesday for access, and the following Monday, 7/1, for fire life safety approval. So for review, and they are expecting a full approval. So we are moving forward with that as well.
When we've talked about these endless delays out of DSA, does that mean, is that a delay that will now begin, or does going to DSA in this context mean that we expect?
This is our second trip, so
Okay.
we are expecting a full approval.
Got it.
So
Pretty
we've
soon.
answered all their questions.
Right?
Yeah, we've gone through the full plans. We've answered all their questions. We've done the Casitas Municipal Water. Ventura County Fire has signed off officially. BC Health is officially signed off now. So Yeah, we are anticipating the go-ahead. And then another one, the Miramonte HVAC is also in your packet tonight. Rachel from SiteLogic is actually here just to, make sure it does get officially approved. But that'll actually that will take care of about 50% of the Miramonte HVAC units. All the ground units will be replaced, and they are early to mid 80 units. So they are ready, to say the least. And I would say the last topic or the last piece is that we are actively working with Linda Jordan on communications to now, whenever Alan and I are on site, we'll be able to snap a few pictures with the project name, and they're going to go to her bucket, and she's going to automatically upload them to the Measure J Projects website right now. So we will have constant photo stream going on each project as you click on it.
Isn't her contract only through June 30th?
The contract for this year, yes, through June 30. It's not yet been renewed for the next year, but we are going to take her through the summer.
Okay.
Right.
Snap lots of pictures really fast.
We are. There's clearly a lot of projects going on. So, and on that, Alan actually has a little show and tell for you as well. I know we've come to you a couple times with a few change orders and whatnot, and you'll see why. So.
We can make this work. Tried to test it before I got it, but starting with the Matilla locker and gym, oh, good, it worked. It did something.
Oh, great.
So there's kind of where we started with the locker room, and you can see inside what it started like. Then they came in and they protected and in place all the lockers the ones that were not removed. So there again is inside the locker room. Then we got busy, and they demolished 2 weeks worth of concrete just in there hammering away. And then you see a fellow there getting ready to do plumbing work, and then you see the south wall on the left side of the page and that wall was being held together by the stucco on the outside and the termites on the inside. So we had to replace that entire wall. You see that hole there on the far right is actually close to 10 feet long, 42 inches deep, and a little over 4 feet wide. There are 2 of those, and that is where not only the plumbing goes, but some of the footing for the new design of the locker rooms. And what happened there? So yeah, so here is the open south wall. They took the whole south wall down, and it's being held up by those beams that are shoring it up. And then we got to the point of framing, and you see below the letter M, that's all the new framing. We didn't have to take that, believe it or not, we didn't have to take that wall to DSA for approval because we replaced exactly what was there. So if you're replacing exactly what's there, board for board, then you don't have to get it approved by DSA. And we're going to probably have to do a similar thing with that with some of the roofing joists. Moving on to the next, just another project, we mentioned that the Topa demo started today, and there's a picture of the bucket truck that's getting ready to demo it.
You guys are going fast.
Yeah, and then you see in the bottom picture, there's actually one of the air conditioning units that we lifted off the roof is being held underneath that bucket, and so we salvaged that. We have a HVAC unit that went out in room 22 at Miramonte, and one of those 2 units is going to replace that. So we're repurposing it. And then in the far right top picture, you'll see that they've actually demolished the building, and that's kind of what it looks like right now. So just to give you an idea, we actually have 7 current projects going right now that I'm job siting, and Adam and I are job siting throughout the day and answering questions and getting keys and just getting things going. So we are moving fast.
So remember that breathing's in your toolbox.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then in my closing, I'd just like to say thanks to Andy. And I got to say, today I finished 4 months since I was hired. I was hired February 19th. And so I got to say, I feel gypped that I don't get to work longer with you. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, these are moving so fast. In some of the pictures, you can see the students leaving for the summer.
Adam, were they able to take care of that vehicle? Do you know whatever happened to that? That was out in front of Matilla,
Oh, the Rincon?
Yes. We took
Yeah,
care of that.
thank you.
Yeah,
For the big dance, we brought the giant car that they had used in Guys and Dolls and brought it from the stage. Also had this great idea. The thing weighed like 250 pounds, and we barely were able to get it out there. And I happened to see Adam, after, and I said, dude, there's this giant car. Do you think maybe the guys can demo it? He's like, I think I know a guy.
Yeah, they handled it, no problem.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, why don't we take 7.4.7 through 7.4.12 together? Although, Rachel, if we vote no, will you just keep coming? Because we need more people in our.
I will keep coming.
All
I
right.
really can't be, so I'll.
All right.
If Rachel would cover her ears for a second, I'd like y'all to know that there were 2 bids on this project, and theirs was just a little over half the other bid.
Wow, good job.
We really wanted to work with this district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have one question before
Yeah,
we vote.
sure.
On, the paving at Miners Oaks, is that a parking lot or is that sort of among the classrooms?
That one is actually the DSA closeout portion.
'Cause
So-
man, I hate when you go to the, not the cafeteria, but
Right.
That'll be back in the back. Yeah, that will be handled eventually. The first order of business was alleviating the DSA issue.
So,
Was that one of the old ones?
yeah,
Yeah, it's-
this is our last old one.
It's the last old one.
Yep,
Wow.
took all 4 years.
champagne.
I know.
Yeah.
You recall there was
Exactly.
something around $500,000 in the DSA closeout budget, and we will have spent around $225 to $250 by the time it's all done.
Great,
Nice.
Excellent.
great.
It's huge.
This
Good.
one created required a little creative thinking between Alan and I and Teresa for that matter. But it worked out. We didn't have to demolish half the sidewalk anymore, so.
Cool.
But it was good.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll move to approve the series set forth earlier by you. Thing.
All right,
A second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you.
And happy summer.
Yeah.
We're rolling, so.
Yeah.
Um,
you.
but real quickly, I just wanted to say thank to all of you as well for the confidence that you guys have in Alan and I. It's very nice to come in here, have some questions and then approve everything at once. We really appreciate it, the confidence you guys have in us, so thank you.
Right.
This is all in Canadian dollars, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Just want to be clear.
Just do a good job.
Just win, baby.
All right. Moving on to 7.5.1, approval of the updated nutrition services plan.
Yep, this is just an update to our meal payment and collection procedure. It's just formalizing the procedure itself. We are limiting the amount of that a student can charge for the a la carte items. So again, we will never deny a child regardless of their payment status or debt status with the district. We'll never deny actual nutritious meal. But we are going to actually start saying some limitations on a child's ability to purchase 5 Gatorades for their friends when they have a $100 debt with us. So that's the sort of clarification and policy that we have identified here.
I have 2 questions. So what is the deficit at the end of this year in terms of those?
So we were up at nearly 15,000, and the incredible work of Julie and her team were at 6,000. So they, and not just the incredible work of them, but also generosity of our community, because a lot of it did come in through donations.
Did have some donations.
Myers Oaks was had a really large deficit, or large debt, and it was actually a lot of work by our staff, and ultimately they were about $250 away, and so our staff were the ones who said, let's each chip in $50 and we want to get this thing cleared. And so for all of our staff, but especially those Myers Oaks workers, they really cared deeply about this issue and worked hard to try to reduce that contribution. So
Do you think those are families who should be applying for the free and reduced and we're not getting to them?
well, we're getting to them daily with their debt. We are, obviously our staff at the site know the families well, and so if they have reason to suspect that they may now qualify and not qualify earlier in the year, they're talking to the families about that. Frankly, I was actually one of the families that was on the list, and it's because I had forgotten, or I didn't realize that Christian,
Me too.
Didn't realize that Christian had purchased 2 meals when we actually packed him lunches on those days. So, I think it's actually a lot of families in that situation. Obviously, the ones that have larger debts, there may be more going on there, but we, certainly try to work with the families throughout the year on either creating a payment program. So, if they get themselves $300 in the hole that they're not being told, they have to come up with all of it at once, but we try to work with them. Obviously, if we make sure they're aware of the free and reduced meal program, but we don't know everyone's individual story, but I think that the number of families who are in this situation would be a rare occurrence that they would qualify for free and reduced and continue not to pursue that.
So do you feel, is there any way for us to know, I mean, is it like certain families that are always doing this, or are there many families? Like if you look at the 15,000, was it 100 people or was it 1,000 people?
It's probably a lot considering there's 4 of us right now.
Exactly. Yeah, there's certainly, I'm sure it's a, what is it? Pareto principle, is that what they call it? The 80-20 rule. I mean, certainly there's a large number of families, I would say certainly in excess of 100, who had some debt. I don't know if it's 1,000, but it's a large number. But a lot of those families were families like those who were just self-identified, who had a 3, a 6, maybe a $15 balance, not the ones who have $100 plus. I mean, that's a small number, but obviously it doesn't take too many that have hundreds of dollars of debt that really have an impact on the total number.
Right. And I remember this came before us a few years ago. I think it showed it was before you were on the board, that what we used to do if you didn't have a balance was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then they've changed that now, so that there's no
shaming of the child.
You can't say, right, oh, he's got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And how much does that, does that cost us $2 per kid, or how do you think that change in policy has affected?
Yeah, that certainly is one of the driving forces for having the largest debt that we've ever had on the books for the department. There was, it was certainly a stick rather than a carrot or any other motivation tool. But when kids were coming home telling their parents that they were only getting the PB&J, they were more proactive in paying down the debt. But for us right now, the feds reimburse us about $3.38 per meal, so that'd be one number to use. If you look at right now what we're spending on a total meals produced across the year divided by our full cost in the department, we're actually close over $3.75 a meal. We're trying to recoup it at $3.25 as the actual cost. It's significant. By changing this policy, we are certainly incurring a greater debt.
So part of that is incurred whether the families pay or not, right? Because it's costing us more to produce the meals than we have reimbursement from them.
Right, yeah. Let's be clear. We have a $100,000 plus or minus deficit right now running our nutrition service program. The collection procedures and the outstanding meal balances is not the primary contributor to that. It's a larger issue of our structural deficit based on meal cost and labor being spread across 7 sites.
So will we expect to see that piece reduced with the Matilaha cafeteria? Because we won't have these?
It will, but it's not going to be.
Not hugely.
It's not going to be the answer. When you operate 7 schools, that we have to still have labor hours committed at both the breakfast or the snack hour plus the lunch hour. There's still high labor costs spread across the sites. But yes, we do expect labor savings. But the main focus at Matilaha is significantly improving the quality of the meals rather than significantly driving down labor costs.
Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to make a comment that I didn't know that if my kid has a surplus in their balance at the end of the year, that I could just donate it to that. It seems obvious that I should know that, but I think that advertising that and letting parents know that that's a possibility when the end of the year comes around. And I wonder how many parents know that teachers were kicking in for their families. I had no idea that teachers were paying off the balances. That seems do we ask you guys to do enough yet? I think parents need to know that when it doesn't get paid, here are the consequences. So I think we need to put that in our message. And that they can donate their, I mean, in my mind, that money's already gone. I've already paid it. It's, may as well do some use for the district.
Does it carry over?
Yeah.
I just wanted to suggest that we continue to look at, all the different ways people can pay for things. Because I'll tell you personally, I got these pushed notifications that John, I think over at TOPA was over his budget, and I was like, oh, we gotta pay that, and it's like the only online alternative was using Parent Connect, which I find really clunky. I can never find this gigantic code that, and it's just if we could do like Zelle or what was that, Venmo or just stuff like that, just make it easier. I would have paid it, literally they asked me like 3 times because I kept forgetting, and then I'd tell Ashley and she'd say, I'm gonna drop it off, and so it just would be easy. It would be great to make it easier. Now, that may not be addressing most of the problem, but it certainly would at least help for the cash flow part of it.
Agreed. I found myself with the same issue.
Yeah.
I missed the person in the morning twice, and then
Yeah.
I would like $4.25, and I was like, how do I pay?
Yeah, like getting
So-
on Parent Connect is like, a Bitcoin, key or something. It's like TXX598 Alpha Foxtrot.
You haven't memorized it yet?
Holy cow.
We'll look into that, Kevin. Thanks.
If you want to reach out to me, I know people in the payments industry that I would not benefit from, that we could maybe get some help with.
Very good.
So,
So I move to approve the updated nutrition services meal payment and collection procedure.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. 7.5
Maybe
point,
jumped the gun, I hadn't said aye yet.
oh, I thought I heard you,
I
sorry.
made the motion, that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm just teasing.
All right.
The guy's working on the track.
That's right. I'm out with them. All right, 7.5.2. So this is on the, I thought we voted on this, but
So you guys-
apparently this is a different vote.
Well, there's actually going to be a few more things that still come to you. So this is the next step in the process. So you identified which of the 2 scenarios that you were approving. This is now the formal resolution that memorializes that selection. After this, like I said, you still will have a couple resolutions. One will be after we get the date and approval for a meeting from the county committee. There will be another resolution necessary at that point, and we'll also have a resolution because just like we did when we went to the state for a waiver request from the typical bid process on this property here, the district office property, we actually have to seek a waiver from the state to not have this topic go out to the community in an election, not to have them have to vote on it and us incur the $25,000 cost or so of running an election. So, so there are going to be a few more resolutions that Tiffany will bring to you in the summer or in the early fall. But this is the step that really formalizes everything that we've done thus far and is a good transition point between she and I.
Great, thank you. Motion,
I'll move to approve. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Is that a roll call vote or?
Oh.
Looks like a roll call vote.
Does it require a roll call vote? No, okay. Yeah, it's,
And I said aye as well.
excellent. I never had to vote so many times for something that I really didn't like.
Like a vampire.
All right, 7.5.3, this is approval of a regular meeting date for the month of July. I think we're all available, both the 24th and 25th. It was suggested we do the 24th of July because it's a Wednesday, and that's more in line with our normal date. Although this is a placeholder, and we may not actually have to meet, but we want to make sure that we can. So if you want,
Because Tiffany had a couple of things she wanted to bring to us, but, so I assume early July is too early. I guess, Kevin, you're gone,
We're in Turkey, yep.
when do you get back from Turkey?
Since this is being broadcast publicly.
That was the earliest.
We will be coming and going from Turkey at all times. We might show up at any moment.
We have that house sitter and that dog sitter.
Yeah, and
then
people
I
are
think it
checking
overlaps with
in
9
every
o'clock,
day,
so.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I know I'll be checking in a couple of those days, so. All right,
24th, you're saying, thing?
yeah, for a penciled-in meeting.
And so just a reminder, and for those in our audience, this is the reason that you're actually taking this formal action here is that you have greater ability to do business at a regularly called meeting, and in order for it to be called regularly called, you have to actually do it in this setting in a prior meeting. But at all times, you maintain the flexibility of being able to call a special meeting, as we've done many times this year, without having it be in the context of a board meeting. So if through email we identify the need for other meetings in July or early August, we always have the ability to do a special meeting called with 24 hours notice. But by doing it, by announcing it and scheduling it formally here, this gives us even more ability to formalize business.
I'll move to approve the regular board meeting on July 24th.
I'll second.
With the caveat that we can cancel if we don't have enough to do. Is that okay? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. I listened for every single aye. Okay. I updated 7-Eleven, actually, we were also, I know, we're gonna move 5 more agenda items in here. But no. There was also some discussion about an August date. Kathy, that was for board retreat.
We just haven't identified the board retreat, so we could always poll you.
But a
If
board
you like.
retreat would be a special meeting.
Right,
We don't
That would
have
be,
to
yeah,
adjourn.
we don't have to do that. We can do it by email, that's fine. Okay. The updated 7-Eleven committee report regarding Summit Elementary School and, before Jim talks, yeah.
Just after the meeting, last meeting when Trevor and the committee presented their findings, we got some feedback from a couple committee members who helped identify that actually one of the recommendations taken by the committee or voted on and approved by the committee had been left off the list. And so this is a updated, more accurately reflects what the committee actually took action on for their recommendation. It was number 3, which it's a little confusing the way it's worded, but the idea would be that it's a 4-year lease, 2 years into which there would be an opportunity for the district to evaluate its needs for the property. If it was going to need the property, then there'd be a notification going to Rocktree Sky that they have the next 2 years to be looking for a new home. So the way it's worded here is that it's a 2-year lease with an option for an additional 2 years, but it's really half dozen of one, 6 of the other.
Great. Jim, do you want to
Yeah, sure, thank you.
share with us your thoughts?
Yes, and I wanted to, I'm glad you said the number 2, Andy, because I brought 2 water bottles. I thought, what parting gift, I'm not gonna try, and I could place them like this for the video camera. But really, I figure a
Thank you
family
very
needs
much.
water bottles,
Hey,
and I
thank
did
you, Jim.
want to,
Appreciate that.
hopefully Kathy doesn't count my time, say that I've appreciated, Natasha and I both appreciated your logic, your whip smart, and very steady hand. And I personally have appreciated your guidance. This was, I came in here like a babe in the woods, I think, really, in terms of trying to, manage all these pieces and learn a lot, and you were a great instructor. So even though you may not have your teaching credential, you're a really good educator. So thank you so much
Appreciate
for
that. Thank
that. And I just want to commend the board and the district on some really exciting tools. The toolbox thing is beautiful. That's great. I was talking with my wife last night, and social emotional intelligence, we feel, is for us kind of that really primary first piece that allows those other pieces to go faster, right? So that's really beautiful. And then restorative justice practices, also excellent. We conducted a circle with our community for a student towards the end of the year. It was powerful. So it's the first time I've done that kind of work. So awesome. So I just want to I want to share our mission statement, because we worked on that recently. End of the school year, we get together, we've been cleaning up. And we spent some time, and I want to share it with you, and then share a few words from some of the community members that came to the 7-Eleven committee. And so the mission of Rock Tree Sky is to cultivate a learning community where everyone develops their whole self through owning their learning in relationship with others. So it's kind of where we're starting from and going from with what we're doing up there at Summit. And then I learned that the 7-Eleven committee meetings, they give you a packet of these letters that people send in, but really it's the people in the audience that seem to move the day. And so I wanted to share. I just pulled out a few ideas, and I went through these letters. And of the 18 I hold in my hand, I know there have been more that have come in. I pulled them, and 4 of them make no mention of Rock Tree Sky and just say we want a public school, but make no mention of us. 3 of them say we'd prefer a public school, but we think Rock Tree Sky is just fine being there. And 11 of them are in favor of our program continuing at Summit School. So, and these are families probably that are enjoying what we're doing there. So I just wanted to share that information. And if I could just share a few small thoughts from some of these letters with you about why families feel us being at Summit is valuable and important. I would like it to continue to be a public school in the present and future, but I have no problem with Rock Tree Sky renting the property in the meantime. That was that one kind of one example of a naysayer. If the district decided to close the public school, I could think of no better way to keep the spirit and essence of Summit alive than through this particular program. Out of all the possible scenarios, having Jim, Natasha, and Rock Tree Sky as part of the long-term solution for Summit School campus is a wise decision. It allows the spirit of childhood education and community building to continue and gives the district a stable, engaged partnership with a group that cares deeply about the property, the surrounding community, and the impact the two have on one another. And this is from Lauren Snyder, who grew up in Upper Ojai, went to Summit School K through 6. I will share, I think our open-minded and creative community in Ojai needs this type of program as an option for families in the Ventura County. The facility is just the beginning of something very important and part of educational change. And we definitely feel like working in partnership with the district as a demonstration of some things that, there can be some back and forth with. And if I can leave on share one final thought from a family member. I deeply feel that Rock Tree Sky is an exceptional, highly valuable institution, and giving the educators and children a place where they can rely on as their home with facilities that can service their ambitions is truly a worthwhile endeavor for the community and the children who will one day set out into the larger community of the world. It's from Nick Pizzolatto, and I want to finish because with one family who has a student who went to a few different schools in the community, and I think speaks to the fact that the environment that we're allowed to create there, working with homeschool families, meets the needs that the district hasn't, as Tiffany said, met yet, right? It's a challenge. We're always trying to grow, and there's a lot of growth happening right now with the district. But, for this student, the grandfather writes, even good traditional schools have slowed him down by insisting on a structure that he's never quite able to fit. He's shy and more comfortable with adults than peers, and always roamed alone in the perimeters of the classroom and classmates. At Rock Tree Sky, with its room and support for individual student to find his way, he's free to find his way both educationally and socially, and excelling in the former and gradually making friends through collaborative projects such as building a stage and then acting in plays that the students created. And I'm just asking that as you deliberate, that you consider some stability for the work that we're trying to do. And that's all we're looking for until such a time as you guys, as there is a need in Upper Ojai for a public school. And I just thank you for your time and the work.
Right, thank you.
And I'm here for anybody.
Terrific.
Maybe can you remind us, so we do this, then what's the?
Exactly. So for tonight, we're asking you to, again, just as with last meeting, when you make a motion to accept this report, you're not endorsing the elements of the report, but rather just simply receiving it. But we do want to take this opportunity to discuss what you would like for your next steps. Just as a reminder, in 2016, when our last 7-Eleven committee made their recommendation, they completed their process in April of 16. The board began meeting in May, and it was through a marathon of, I believe, 4 meetings held in September at Matilaha that you eventually arrived at the point at which you took a vote on the recommendations of that committee. In this case, I don't know that there's going to be that level of analysis, but you guys have the ability to either decide to act on any one of the 3 recommendations that they've provided, and if that was the desired course, then we'd agendize that for next meeting, and there's a lot of work that would go with it. If there's more information or more work that you would desire from administration before you would feel ready to take action on one of these paths, or an alternative, remember, you always have the ability to take the feedback and ultimately through your own deliberations decide a 4th path. So really, we need to know from the board what your desired next steps would be. Would you like it agendized as an action item for a particular path, or is there more information you need for deliberation?
Where were these letters, what were these letters that Jim?
There was a packet of letters that was provided to the 7-Eleven committee, I believe 2 separate committees, so it's or 2 separate meetings. We can, of course, provide all materials that went to the committee, including those letters.
I don't know if this is the proper place to my.
Well, this is the only place where we
Well, no, I
can
just
talk
mean, do
public.
we wait for that special meeting? But my impression was that there was a small contingent that was pushing a particular item, and that there was a larger group pushing the other items. And I don't know that I've got, I'd like to know a little more specifically about that, because I had heard about one meeting that you had gone to, maybe it was before it was a 7-Eleven.
It was before there was a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, and it sounded like 40 people, like, one way and 2 the other way. But this makes it look like all 3, I don't really have.
Are equally supported.
Yeah. Is that important or not?
Well, again, we can certainly provide an administrative summary of our perception of the deliberations. I would just say here that I think that if we were to count the letters and public statements, it was not very close as far as the number that were in support of Rock Tree Sky versus the alternative of a support for the idea of a charter school. Ultimately, as Jim made mention to, the individuals in support of a charter school had a powerful voice in the final meeting, and so if you remember, it's hard to think back only a couple months ago, but at their penultimate meeting where they took their initial stance, they actually, as a committee, voted against the consideration of a charter school or public school at the site. They voted for they voted for a number of scenarios, some with RTS, some with making it a county owned property, those sorts of things. And I think it was because of that response that the committee ended up taking in some new information in the last meeting. But again, we
That's
have
accurate.
a committee member, an administrator, so we can try to, and of course our meetings are recorded, so there's that available to the community. Unfortunately, our final meeting was not recorded, but we can try to capture that feedback for you.
I'll tell you my feeling is I would like the facility to be generally available to the community for meetings or whatever the community needs to do. I think Rock Tree Sky has been a great partner there, and I think giving them some stability benefits us and benefits them. I want to keep an open mind to what the community up there feels like they want and can be supported. So but I think some of the comments that I heard about were dependent on housing projects being built in Santa Paula and maybe those students coming up and but I think all of those are more long-term sort of things, and I don't see the demographics of Upper Ojai changing within the next year or probably two. And so even if there's a great idea coming from the Upper Ojai community, I think it'll take a year or two to coalesce and put it together. So right now the way I feel is I would be very comfortable moving forward with the 2+2 lease idea that's suggested by the committee, with keeping in mind what I said, that the community have some access, and that the community also, that we keep our ears open to what the needs are of the community, so that if there are enough students or if there's a program that can use it under the guise of the school district, that we're open to that when and if it becomes viable.
So I think, Andy, then a meeting, certainly, we need a meeting to talk about, because I'm also feeling like, I remember a group of people saying, why isn't the district helping us open, a magnet school there? And that's not here at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the committee looked at the demographics and the number of children who live in that area, and felt that was not a good choice for the district, right? So we as a board haven't, we had discussed it for a year, like, okay, next year we won't. But I think part of that meeting, we need to go back into, oh yeah, I guess we did. We said, we didn't say permanently, but we did have a meeting.
Right.
So
If I could just add what I think is some maybe clarity, that I believe the 7-Eleven's primary purpose is not to talk about, although it's certainly part of it, what we do with the property, but the threshold question of whether it's surplus. So we first have to conclude that it is surplus, I think, right?
That's right.
And then if we do that, then the next question is, what do we do with it? But I basically agree with you, Jane. I think we accept the report, but I think we certainly as a board have to give the community a chance to speak on these issues.
Though actually now I'm thinking we did, actually.
Well,
That's
but-
why we convened 7-Eleven, because we said we would not be reopening it as a public, a regular public school in our valley.
Well,
For
I'll
the
let
upcoming
Andy
year.
talk to the legal issue of the surplusing, but I don't believe we've ever made that determination as of now.
Beyond 1 year.
Yeah, correct. So
Indefinitely was the thing Michael was, remember we.
right, we
I'll go
changed
back.
the indefinite to only be for this upcoming year. So the next step in this process, and what we need to engage in the conversation around tonight, is for a future agenda item, are you prepared at this time to have an agenda item where you'd be asked to consider, again, I'm not asking you to tell me your vote at this time, but just to consider surplusing the property, identifying it for surplus? Or is there more information or more public hearings that you'd like to have? Is there more feedback beyond this report before you'd be ready to have that be an action item for you? Or do you feel that in July or at a future meeting date that the next step in this process is to hold a meeting in which you consider whether or not to deem it surplus?
Do you have to deem it surplus in one meeting and then make other decisions in a meeting, a subsequent meeting? Or can they be done in the same meeting? The question I'm really trying to get to is, if we deem it surplus, and then say we follow Bain's desire to enter into a longer-term lease with Palm Sky, if this group comes together and has a charter and succeeds at the district or county or the state level to get a charter, where does that ability to have first rights on the property happen? If we're in a lease, do they still have first rights to move them out of a lease? What does that look like?
Great question. So
Yeah, that's a really good question.
yeah, so no, the charter school does not have the ability to force a user of district property space off that space if there's a valid lease in place. If that lease were for, let's just go with the hypothetical scenario of what was recommended as the second recommendation. If the lease terminated June 30th, 20, before Rock Tree Sky would have the opportunity to renegotiate an extension, that charter would have a right to potentially, supersede them in negotiating a future contract, future lease. But as long as there is a valid lease agreement, the charter school does not have the ability to invalidate that lease and then kick off a current user.
I guess my feeling is that,
I have to, I have to say, I think we should do a belt and suspenders on that. I mean, get Atkins or whatever the firm is to kick in on that, because I'm a little that's an interesting one, because if the legislature intended that the charter would have first rights on it, but you could sort of get around that by quickly leasing it for some extended period of time, I'm not sure, it strikes me as maybe not the intended effect, but I don't know.
Well, there's not currently a charter. So again, if there was a charter in place right now, then there would be no quick option of being able to bypass considering that charter. Again, just a reminder, as far as their guaranteed negotiation rights on the property, they'd have to have a classroom-based program, can't be, again, a hybrid model, can't be a model like Rock Tree Sky. Has to be a full classroom-based program with 80 ADA, so let's call it 86 actual students enrolled, because again, ADA is about 95% of enrollment of kids from within our boundaries. So the only way a charter actually has strong rights for a property is if it's a classroom-based program, 86 OUSD kids. Doesn't matter how many San Paula kids they have. They could have, if they had 10 OUSD kids and they pulled 200 from Santa Paula, they would not have a right to that property above even a Rock Tree Sky.
So that's why our current charter does not have rights to it, because it's not school, it's not classroom-based.
Right, so exactly. Laura Fulmer actually, during the last 7-11 deliberations in 15 and 16, came to reaffirm what we were saying, which was that she fully understands that there's no scenario in which she has rights to district surplus property because of those factors. She is not large enough, nor is she a classroom-based program, and so she fails on both those measures. And she actually spoke to the committee explaining that, they would love to be considered if it was the right thing for everyone involved, but that they understand that they would not have a right.
And our charter with Valley Oak is that they have to cap at 75.
That's right, they're at 75.
So we don't allow them to have 86, so,
Well, the
essentially-
cap is not at all tied to that
It's
factor,
not for that reason,
but yes, it does have that
exist
impact.
and has, yeah.
But classroom-based is more important,
Right.
and they're not interested, and those families are not interested.
Right,
in
it's a different model.
Right.
So we certainly can get a further legal opinion. But again, even if you deem it surplus, there still are steps that will need to be followed before we could enter into a lease agreement with any user. It's not as easy as we surplus it and that same night you'd have a lease agreement before you. Because just like we did on this property again 3 years ago, we do have to send letters to various agencies that have rights, just as, remember the city exercised their rights of negotiation on this property. There would be agencies that would have a right to negotiation, not a right to the property, not a right to have it at a certain price, but to negotiate. And so there are some procedural steps that need to be followed.
So I would like a meeting about surplus.
okay.
I don't need any more.
Yeah, and my feeling on just as part of this topic is that I don't have any interest in surplusing it unless we're intending to lease it. I think I wouldn't want to surplus it just to surplus it. I would only want to surplus it if there's a reason to surplus it.
Well, I think it actually goes kind of the opposite way. I think we decide that we don't have a current need for it, or even a prospective need for it, and then we have to surplus it. I don't think we have the option of just saying we're going to leave property idle because we don't yet know what to do with it.
I think we do.
Yeah, you have there's no urgency to identifying it as surplus. We have only taken action at this time to keep Summit School closed for this upcoming school year. You've not deliberated or taken action on its future beyond that. So there's no requirement that it be deemed surplus between now and a time at which you decide its future, for 2021 and beyond. So I agree with you that if you'd made a decision with certainty the school was going to be closed and with certainty we will never use it for our district purposes, then we should be moving down the path of surplusing. But when there still remains a question, that we don't need to surplus it.
However, as I remember, by not surplusing it, we're not in a position to do anything but enter into a license.
That's exactly right.
As opposed to an actual lease.
Right, that's right. And so that reduces income potential for the district if that's what we're pursuing. A license agreement can be ended. It doesn't even have a 24-hour notice. It can be rescinded and immediately they would have to vacate the property. And so obviously, whether it's Rocktree Sky or any other user of the space, the amount that they're paying for that license agreement is going to be significantly less given that uncertainty than a lease agreement.
But if I remember correctly, as long as we don't permanently dispose of the property, we can still reverse a surplus decision?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Right, exactly. So if you were at a place where you're ready for the next agenda item to be taking up the topic and as an action item to surplus the property and then providing direction to administration on the direction that you'd like us to craft whether it's a bid document or pursue a waiver, the bid packet for a lease can be narrowly tailored for types of uses that even if we entered into a lease, obviously we can't void the lease by just saying, well, we're going to remove the surplus designation. That would make it really the equivalent of a license agreement if the district could unilaterally end it. But what we'd have the ability is to rescind the surplus notice, which would then affect, once the lease is over, it returning to us and us having full use of the property. So yes, a surplus designation at all times is able to be rescinded, but if we have a valid lease in place, that rescission doesn't invalidate the lease.
And then one last question on more question. On this number 3, I didn't quite understand how you recharacterized it. You said it was a 4-year lease, so it's not a 2-year lease with
well, the option rests with Rocktree Sky.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So, all right. So it's
There
for
is
us, it's a 4-year lease.
The actual vote was on it as it's worded here. The conversation was around interchangeably saying that they wanted to give Rocktree Sky a 4-year lease, but that there'd be at the 2-year mark there'd be an evaluation of the district's need for that space. At which time we would let them know that they need to go at the end of the 4 years, and then they eventually end up taking the vote on just saying it'd be a 2-year lease, but they would have an option for a 2-year extension, which again functionally would operate the same except for giving them the ability to have an out.
We just complimented you on making sense about it.
Well,
Sorry.
but we can.
Time for you to go.
You left it a blur. But we can propose any kind of a lease that we want
Right.
to.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly that.
Does it make sense to have this surplus agenda item in July when we're not in school, or would it make sense to have it in August?
I think we should wait.
Okay. My only concern is the longer we wait, and there's going to be a process to the surplus, so that's going to be several months. Plus, if we're waiting several months, then we're
I
like
guess I just
6 months out.
People always say, oh, we're not around in July.
Right. Is our
August
meeting in
17th.
August before school?
Yeah, but it's like the 17th.
The week before.
It's the week before school starts?
But if we're voting for surplus, that doesn't mean we're voting for what to do with it, right? I mean, that to me is the more controversial decision.
Right.
Right? I mean, everybody knows that, it's been surplused. I don't think anybody would be surprised if we surplus it even indefinitely at this point. The controversy and everything is, okay, so what are we going to do with it?
Right. And in all honesty, if it's a week before school starts, really, that's still summer also. Families aren't necessarily around, and families who are getting ready for school to start are just as crazy busy as, it's still an impediment, but I hate
They're
to put
starting
it
to
off.
check their emails and did we
Yeah.
enrolled, when does school start? Have we got our new lunch boxes and backpacks? I don't know. they're focused on school anyway. I'm not that adamant about it. The sooner the better, but I hesitate about July. But if you guys decide differently,
I'm comfortable either way. I think the surplus question alone has been discussed a lot, so. But
I'm with you on that. I'd be willing to put it on the agenda for July, and if we get a lot of feedback that people are out of town who really wanted to address us about that, we can move it.
Yeah, I see the public here tonight.
But this also
This was not a.
means
No,
that
it's
we
not
are
concession.
having a meeting in July, which we just a few minutes ago said was still
but you can move an item to August. If you
Right, no,
can't-
I mean, if we're setting up a July meeting, this is what we're doing. We penciled it in, but now we're saying there's stuff to put in that.
By the way, I assume Tiffany's available for that?
Yes.
Well,
Shall we?
I'm
vote
okay
to
with that.
accept the-
Well, yes, step one is there a motion to
I'll move
accept?
to approve the updated 7-Eleven committee report
Right.
regarding summer.
Yeah. That, there's a motion and a second, is that right? Okay, all in favor? Aye. And it sounded like there was a consensus to put a discussion and possibly a vote on surplusing the property on agenda, on an upcoming agenda. So,
Do we wait and see before, look at whoever meets to set the agenda for a July meeting? and
We
determine
can
it
certainly spend the next couple of weeks, Tiffany, Cheryl, and others, communicating with, the
by
stake.
we, you mean them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
We can communicate with the stakeholders who have expressed interest and engagement in this topic, in the coming weeks to look at the date. I think that what's important is to, again, what we really need guidance on was there, additional information you were seeking from administration before you'd be ready to take up the topic of surplusing. I think the clear direction was no, that you would be ready to take up the topic of surplusing. We need to figure out what the right date is. Would you want at that same meeting a second agenda item, and this one be an opportunity for you guys to discuss how you want to direct administration toward considering or even discuss how you would engage the community in deciding which of the potential uses of the space the bid documents would be tailored toward. So
I would like to discuss it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah, and I just don't know the answer to the chicken or egg aspect of, we're doing that simultaneously with sending notices to the various municipalities and others who have potential dibs on it?
that's right. So we would be, as soon as you surplus, the very next day, we'd have, if you guys decide surplus, we would have letters going out to the agencies to notify them. At the same time, we'd be beginning to work on a bid package, or again, if you guys decide that you'd rather actually have us pursue a waiver, there's those steps that will take longer.
Now, the waiver was the, what allowed us the maximum flexibility.
Right, so the two options, one would be to go through the traditional bid process. You have the ability within that bid to narrowly craft the uses that would be acceptable to you for the lease of that space. And then it would go to the high bidder. You could set a reserve, so let's say that we structure around a use that's agreeable with Rocktree Sky, and we said that our minimum threshold was $300,000, Jim. That's my opening offer. Then it would
It's just an opening, it might come down 5%, don't worry.
the formal process would be that Rocktree Sky and potentially other users would respond to that bid packet. It'd have to be a use that again is agreeable with the requirements we put in there, and then whoever had the highest bid would be the one that gets it.
So certainly, like, if the use was sort of oriented towards school, you could certainly expect potentially some other private school saying, we want to bid on it, right?
Again, depending on how it was tailored, as the language was constructed, it could be constructed in such a broad way that public or private school would be able to bid, or it could be narrowly tailored that would preclude a, actual educational institution from being able to bid. Remember, he's not actually, Rocktree Sky, again, not to say that this is the direction you guys want to go, but Rocktree Sky is not actually classified as a school. So if that was the direction that the boards want to go, it could be, language could be constructed in such a way that would make it more likely for Boys and Girls Club or,
An organization named Rocktree Sky.
yeah, enrichment, child enrichment, services being the type of respondent.
I didn't know that it wasn't classified as a school, so that's news to me. What do you mean, in what context?
It's not a
The
credentialed
legal
school.
entity is it's not a private or public school.
It's essentially a vendor that, that you can access, like the Boys and Girls Club, that you pay to be a part of. But you, for example, don't get a diploma from Rocktree Sky, you don't get grades from Rocktree Sky. That isn't what they do. They just offer the services. So they're not a credentialed school.
It's a nonprofit, but it's not a school.
Fact. Yeah, just support, support in many different ways. For kids who are otherwise, just homeschooling, socialization, enrichment, all those things.
Which is why it's not the same as having a charter school there. Because a charter school is a credentialed school. This is a vendor that it is homeschooling. Your actual curriculum and grades and whatnot comes not from Rocktree Sky. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some semantics that are obviously, I thought of it as a school, and I don't care what you say, I will continue to think so.
I'll support you in that.
So I think the guidance that you provided, next meeting where we discuss this topic, we will have on the agenda potential action to deem the property surplus and a separate agenda item to begin discussing what types of uses would be agreeable to you based on both the recommendation from the committee and other factors that you may consider, including public input.
I think one of the things that I would be interested in hearing in the discussion is I know there was talk at the 7-Eleven committee about other entities potentially using parts of it, even with Rocktree Sky, having it be a community place, and I wonder what a lease would look like if we were to include other people being allowed to use it or not, or, that part of the discussion I have a lot of questions about.
Great, sounds good, we can do that.
All right.
Andy, you're acting just like we're gonna see you 2 days
They,
from now.
they can do it.
All right. Anything more on the superintendent's report?
Thank you, Angie, for changing your travel plans to be here tonight. I remember that you were going to be out of town, but I very much appreciate that. And Chuck, of course, I always appreciate your presence at these meetings and all of our work that we've done together in the past 4 years. I did try to highlight my appreciation for both of you back in my March superintendent's report, just so you know. I didn't want to exclude you guys tonight, but I was limited. But thank you guys both for being here, and thank you for everyone.
I think we should just keep going to midnight so that you can't,
I'm getting texts right now from my brother with a paintbrush in his hand saying, "Where are you?"
We're gonna have to go help him paint if we don't end soon.
Waiting for you.
Anything from board members? Items for future agendas. Consent calendar, is there a motion to approve? Any questions?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
All, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sounded unanimous. With that, I will call the meeting adjourned and say farewell to Andy and thank you so much.